Okay, so we're live. So, hi everybody. Welcome to the 15th episode of Celebrating the Brand Ambassador. I'm very excited to have with me TODD, RICHMAN, and Jesse ESTES. And I'm not going to introduce them. I'm going to have them introduce themselves because both of them have very interesting careers. So, TODD, I'm going to start with you. So, talk about, I know you're not a brand ambassador at the moment, but you have been. So, talk about it like your past and now your current, if you wouldn't mind.
So, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. It's really exciting to be here. It's been ages since I've seen you, Elaine.
I know, it's
Jesse.
so nice to catch up.
Yes, absolutely. And Jesse, I've been a huge fan of what your family's been doing for a long time. It really shaped during my formative years in brand work what quality meant and integrity as far as products go. So it's fantastic to be able to catch up with you and have this conversation. Short and sweet. Short and sweet version is I worked for Frederick Wildman as a wine supplier and then transitioned to handling chartreuse. After that, I worked on cocktail development and education for Sidney Frank and their entire portfolio, leading with Jägermeister as well as Gegekan Sake, American Harvest Organic Spirit, Michael Collins Irish Whiskey. Yeah. Wow. And Baron Jaeger. So worked with a lot of those other brands as well, but Jägermeister was the focus. Then I had the opportunity to work for Diageo for about 5 years, starting with the Masters of Whiskey and then into the reserve team. After that, I worked for a boutique wine and spirits distributor called Progress Wine Group. And now I'm currently the director of sales for Overproof, which is a technology company focused on helping create solutions for different aspects of the beverage industry, both suppliers and the hospitality side.
I want to hear later on. I'm going to ask a question what those solutions are. So, because
absolutely,
it's like a big topic of solutions. I feel like there needs to be so many solutions out there.
Absolutely.
So, Jesse, tell us a little bit about yourself before you became the global brand ambassador, what you did and what you do now. Even though I just said it.
Thanks, Elaine. Thanks for having me on as well, and Todd, thanks for the kind words. So I started off in bars, working in bars for about 7 years in London, and then kind of joined the family business, which we'll talk more about, Tequila Ocho, as the global brand ambassador. Although that's my title, I do a little bit of everything. So I'm the international marketing manager. So all of our markets outside of North America, I do the marketing, and I'm one half of the international sales team for Tequila Ocho. So along with my colleague Salva, I look after about 50 different markets. So
small job.
Just a small job. Also, probably the most fun part. I mean, it's all fun, but I absolutely love new product development. So that's something I'm very much involved with, and I'm sure we'll speak about that more as well. Written a few books and kind of write for publications, trade publications regularly, and involved with kind of the drinks community by the Drinks Trust more recently, and just different projects that I've got going on. But yeah, primarily global brand ambassador for Tequila Ocho.
Great, I have to stop here. I didn't know you wrote any books. What did you write?
I wrote a couple of cocktail books that are more for consumers than trade. So
really.
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations. Awesome. Any that I can find somewhere? Are they on Amazon?
Yeah, they're on everything. Amazon, all over the place. So From Dram to Manhattan is the one about whiskey cocktails, and then Tequila Beyond Sunrise about tequila and mezcal cocktails, and possibly a rum book in the works. So that's something fun that I've got going on.
Well, I will say, as the part-time global brand ambassador for Kapali Rum, which is a delicious rum from Belize. It only uses 3 ingredients, just sugar cane, yeast, and water. That's my plug for the brand. Please let me have some cocktails, and if you want to have some product for some rum, please let me know, because it is fantastic.
I definitely will, and thanks.
Thank you. I have to give them a plug. They are, as the brand ambassador for them, and as a part-time, we don't get to do a lot at the moment in time. So this is my one outlet that I actually get to talk about the brand. All right, so you guys have both worked on brands or categories that have not always been popular always with your target market. Meaning, like Todd, you worked on, as you said, you worked on an entire portfolio. But when I met you, you were really making Jägermeister relevant to the cocktail industry, which was interesting because it was only like the thing you found in college bars and a shot machine. And then Jesse, working, obviously tequila is relevant, but it keeps growing. It wasn't the thing everybody looked to. And especially in Europe, it is it's still a spirit that people still have some hesitation about jumping into. It's not their first thing they turn to. So I really wanted to talk to what are some of the activations? And Todd, I know we talked about something really cool you did to make Jägermeister something that people looked upon more seriously to get them under brand. And then I want to talk to you, Jesse, about like what you guys have done to kind of get the people in Europe to embrace tequila, in a different way. So Todd, for you, what did you do?
All right. It was really interesting to go from a brand like Chartreuse, which an herbal liqueur with a ton of complexity that was in the early 2008, 2009, 2010 handful of cocktail aficionados in the trade were leaning into that brand. And then to swing over to Jägermeister, you had almost the antithesis, which was this general market that really, really loved Jägermeister. They had embraced it, but with the cocktail, sort of the craft cocktail set, they had really sort of pushed it away on reputation only. So I was lucky enough to work with TODD Carducci on a seminar called Blinded by the Dark, which was a blind tasting of Amaros, digestifs, and herbal liqueurs. And it allowed us to sort of stand on the shoulders of other brands. Where the interesting thing was that the trade began to embrace the brand because when they tasted it blind and looked at it for what it was, an herbal liqueur with well-selected ingredients, thoughtfully made, take away all the other reputations about it, they really began to embrace it. And credit goes to TODD Carducci for being willing to embrace Jägermeister. And at the same time, big thanks to Jägermeister for being like, you know what, this could be a really interesting angle for us to position the brand in. So it was really cool to be a part of that. And also, anytime you can use a bitter or herbal liqueur that is somewhat sweet in nature, there's an opportunity with a slight variation of the other ingredients to feature Jägermeister in there. So that was really the plan.
I thought that was really, because it's true. Like, we all thought of Jägermeister as the shop brand. And I also think the other thing was really interesting was that Todd at the moment was working with Domain Select. You were working with Sydney Frank, and the two of you partnered up. So it's like two competing companies kind of doing something together, which is also unique within the industry, at that time. And so for you, is it more like because people tasted it blind, they were like, oh, that's really good. And then it's like they just thought of it in a new way. They were able to kind of separate like what Jägermeister's reputation was. Did you have any, like, what would you say your big success? One was, how did, you and Todd working together, you and Tad working together as a company, was there any hesitation from either company?
Nope.
That you're doing more?
Not a drop. There was no real issue because it was all trade focused, and it allowed us to work in a different way than we had worked in the past. What was the most exciting thing was when we did the seminar at Portland Cocktail Week, we also managed to throw a party where there were ice cold, neat servings of Jägermeister. You could get just a local pint of beer, some pizza, and we had a really fun DJ. So working on a brand like Jägermeister, it allowed us to have this dichotomy which maintained the true brand ethos, which is ice cold shot, herbal liqueur, meant for celebratory occasions. But alongside that, hey, listen, they're sourcing their 56 herbs, roots, spices, flowers, fruits from all over the world. And when you're putting that kind of thought and care into a product, then that should be celebrated as well by the people who make their own orgeat, get into long conversations waxing poetic about, no, you need to use this type of neutral grain spirit to make your tinctures, and fights about overproof rum. You know, that demographic really started to lean into the potential of the brand. Now, did that mean that all these crafty cocktail bars were going to be sudden epicenters to drive volume? No. But it meant if I was at Swift around the corner from where we took Bar 5 Day, if I bought a round of Guinness and shots of Jägermeister, nobody turned their nose at it. Right. Because they understood what it was eventually. It was a very long process, but at the same time, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we're just curious. I mean, Jesse, do you ever work with other brands, or is it just within the Camarena family?
No, I've only worked specifically with Tequila Ocho, rather than other tequila brands.
But I think I'm wondering, no, I'm saying, like, would you ever, as just to enhance the category, maybe embrace, like in Europe, doing something like a collaborative with multiple tequila brands?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We've done that. You know, to us, it's really about, you know, your question about how do you really work with a brand where that category has a stigma to it, or there's difficulties around selling that category. And we still do that today, even in a market like the UK, which is quite mature, the most mature for tequila in Europe, but still at least 10 years behind the US, let's say. But we still work with other brands because our whole goal is to elevate the category of tequila, and especially 100% agave tequila. And within that, we all benefit. You know, all the brands benefit. So we work with basically all brands. We're all friends. We say we're friends, not brands, in the tequila category.
Is there any activations that you guys have done that you really are proud of? That you're like, all right, this is definitely making a difference for tequila?
Well, kind of similar to what Todd said, and I think that blind tastings are just so helpful. So we've done a series of blind tastings across all agave spirits, including, you know, Bacanora, Raicilla, even Soto. I've usually throw in kind of some wild cards, South African agave spirits, Indian agave spirits, Venezuelan. And it just really, our goal is to change people's perceptions about tequila, about agave spirits. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to get beyond the label. Like Todd said, you say the word Jaeger and all kinds of people will have all these big preconceptions about what that means to them. Whereas you take that away and you just have the liquid, it speaks for itself. And I think people are very often surprised and shocked by their discoveries, myself included, in blind tastings. I think it's a great exercise.
No, it is. I mean, because it's funny. Most brand ambassadors are just hoping to get people to love their brand within a category, but to get people to actually embrace a category, not just your brand, but just the category as a whole, that's a whole nother challenge. It's like you got two jobs. You know, it's like educating people about tequila, educating people about then Tequila Ocho and how yours stands within the category. So it does make your job a little more challenging, but it probably makes your role a little more interesting because it's not just about selling your brand. You're like changing perspectives for an entire industry, which is kind of cool. It's a lot of fun, I would imagine, but challenging.
And, you know, my dad is very much, obviously, is the founder of Tequila Ocho, but he is also the official tequila category ambassador from Mexico to the EU, to the European Union. So that's very much what he's been doing for 45 years now, is promoting the tequila category in Europe long before Ocho was around. So that's something close to our heart, that we want the whole category to prosper and do well, not just our own brand.
Now, his story about when he was telling me how you opened Cafe Pacifico, Todd, I don't know if you're familiar with Thomas Estes, Jesse's dad, but you are, but I got to interview him last week or 2 weeks ago, and we were chatting, and the fact that he opened up Cafe Pacifico in Amsterdam, a tequila bar in the 1978, like when people were like, I have no idea what really tequila is, and I don't really drink it, but he went full on, you know, and brought it in, started educating them, and then opened tequila bars, you know, 5 or 6 of them, right, around the globe.
18 of them, yeah, 18 of them.
18,
yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize it was 18. I thought he had 1 in each country. I didn't realize how big it was.
No, in London at one point we had six venues, I think. So yeah, he made his way around Europe and Australia and different places.
Wow, that I didn't know. So all right, so Jesse, Tequila Ocho has such a compelling story, right? You have, and also you have two different packaging styles. And anybody tuning in, and we're starting to get a few people, like, can you tell us why you have two different bottles, and do you have them there so they can see and what the story is? Yeah, behind Tequila Ocho.
Todd has seen this one or not. This is actually a limited edition red bottle, but this is what I'm trying to get this facing the right way.
Yeah, we can see it.
Good. This is the European packaging and Asian packaging. It's 500 milliliters. It's normally a clear bottle that's screen printed, so the 8 on there would be screen printed in this writing and things. Obviously, anyone tuning in from Europe, this is the US packaging, so we're talking really worlds apart here between the two. And we started with the 500 mil, kind of what we call the red bottle packaging. That was our initial design that we did ourselves. And it was very much for our own bars at that time. We were our own first customer. And we wanted something ergonomic for the speed rail and easy to use, and something that didn't have a label that would get kind of stained or ripped or wet and difficult to clean. And the best thing with these bottles is you can just take the back of a bar knife and kind of scrape off the screen printing fairly easily, and you've got cheater bottles. So I love going to bars around the world, and I just can point out on the back bar. Yeah, so it's for us as kind of being an on-trade background, it makes sense. And then the US, we 500 mils back then was an illegal size. Obviously,
I know it's legal now. It's legal now. Like, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's legal now. 500 mils. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal for so many brands. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, but obviously then, 13 years ago, it was not permitted, and our US importer at the time, who we were speaking to, wanted something that was more kind of premium in image and kind of top shelf, if you can call it that. So we really kind of took everything back to the drawing board, clearly, and started from scratch, and took inspiration from wine bottles, cognac, Armagnac, to really drive home that concept of terroir that's very inherent in French wines or spirits, and wanted to tie that in with tequila. So this is the result. I love both of them. I couldn't choose a favorite, but very, very different. Same exact liquid.
No, I think it's so cool. I don't know if I told you yesterday. I think I did that. One of my first, I met Felipe Camarena when I was there. I was visiting Don Julio, and I asked if I could go to a couple of distilleries, and I went there, and I was really hungover, and I was really late, and I met Felipe. And I had my own bus. Like Diageo gave me a little bus. So I had this giant bus, and it was just me and the driver, right? So I pull up there, and there's like this couple, and they're like waiting for me. And then like Felipe, and he can see I'm hungover, and he looks at his son. He's like, "Go get her a beer." And then I look up, I'm like, "Do you happen to have any Advil?" And I was like, "I will give us the bus all day if you could give me some Advil." So we literally, he's like, "You're mine. I don't know where else you were doing today, but you're mine for the whole day." And so we all went on the bus, and he took us to La Reina when it was still being built, correct? Because that's the newest, or no, he went to La Reina, it was already built. That's where El Tesoro was also made, correct?
La Alteña, so yeah, La Alteña has been there since 1937. I think what you're thinking of is El Pandillo, which is Felipe's distillery, which now produces Or and Pasote and Teralta. Really cool distillery.
Yeah, he did. He took us. Yeah, he took us to both. And when he took us to his new distillery, he was like showing us, and I'll never forget. He was telling us about Tequila Ocho as well, and like it was a single estate and single agaves, and that like nobody else is doing this. But I also remember being in his new distillery. It's still being built, and it's all about recycling water. And a giant bull walked into the distillery. I'm not fucking kidding you. Like, all of a sudden I look up and there's a bull. He just wandered in the front doors. He was like, "Hello." Like, I was like, "There's a bull in your distillery." He's like, "Oh yeah, he's in the field down the way." Most bizarre. But then he took me to the family home, and where is the dad family home. And he told me this crazy story about El Tesoro, about, he's like, did you ever see the green El Tesoro? And I'm like, did you ever hear this story, Jesse? Yeah. He's like, I was like,
a nail or something that was in the barrel, and
an iron ore like dropped into one of the fermentation tanks. Like, so one of the guys, because they stir it by hand, and one of the guys dropped it and didn't tell anybody. So so it tainted the product, and it all arrived in America, and it had this slight green color, right? So they're calling, him, and he's like, does it taste okay? They're like, yeah, but I think there might be something wrong with it. And they finally found out like what had happened. Like the guy never told anybody. So I had some of the green El Tesoro while I was there.
It tastes good. I mean,
it was fine. It was totally fine. All right. So I go off on a tangent here. All right. So Todd, sorry. You guys have both done a great job of building your own personal brands. Todd, people know you from all over the place. And I definitely know, like, when you got hired by, Diageo, they found you. You and I had conversations like, should I take this job or not? But tell us, things you might have done to build up your personal brand. Like, because I think it's a important thing. And I know, Jesse, you have you've done an entire thing about this. And I have as well. To get people to seek you out, what do you think are some great best practices, Todd, so that people, find you?
I guess it's just if you're going to commit to something, do it. Be nice when giving a presentation, being sure to be mindful of
Hi, Diana.
All the questions. What's up, Diana? Being willing to learn from other people in a job and a field like the brand ambassador, where you're considered the face of the brand. You got to take a certain amount of the ego out of it, because that's when things can go off the rails and get dicey really quickly. So I always try to remember that I was part of a team, and that ultimately my job had to lead to sales. It had to lead to sales of the product. So that's making sure I checked all the boxes when I was in a specific market. Was I working with the distributor and building up that relationship? Was I working within our network of regional and market managers, and not just coming in, doing my own thing, thinking that, I'll just do a guest bartending shift. I'll do a bunch of spends and then everything's fine, mission accomplished. No, it's willing to get in there and get in the parts of the job that may not seem so glamorous, like going to out-of-the-way retail stores, going to markets that never get the attention from a brand ambassador, but there's so much value in there because those visits really are impactful, and it's just like anything else, it's relationships and just
I think
finding your place in the team.
Yeah, touching on something there about building your network within the marketing teams, because as a brand ambassador, I think the more you network within the organization, people get to know you, the bigger your value becomes, and then people think you on a whole nother scale. So, like when you went into a market, would you meeting the market managers, knowing the brand teams, is that something you would always make a priority to make sure everybody knew who you were?
Absolutely. I mean, I was pretty OCD about my emails back in the day. Still am to a certain extent, but I've relaxed a little bit. Making sure that the agenda was set, making sure that there was room for me to do recaps and also get a run in or hit the gym or something of that nature.
Smart.
But spending time with the market managers, spending time with the local sales teams, getting to know every level of the distributor chain, just so that they knew I was out there and I was active and was in a way that was working towards the common goal, which is ultimately sales and getting more people to use the brand, whether they're pulling it off the shelf of a retailer, using it at a cocktail, new points of distribution. I think that the work more than anything else, in addition to treating everybody with compassion and respect, is sort of the best way to build a brand. Now, it's not always easy because even within the own company, they're like, oh, who's this person coming in with their bar kit and asking me to go pick up, fresh squeezed tangerine juice for an event. There definitely are people from sort of the generation before that are just state managers, market managers, and they're just like, you know what? I just want you here to sell. I care about depletions. And it's finding that intersection where both of us could do our job, do it well, with the vision of marketing, and try to get the W for everyone.
No, I think when to touch on that, one of the things you brought about was that fact that, like, you've also built a reputation that brand ambassadors are more than just a credit card. You built a brand, you built your own personal brand. It's like, I'm not only going to do this cool interaction and engagement, I don't think I'm above you. I'm part of the team, and building a personal brand. Like, I can help you sell. I can help move cases, because sometimes they wouldn't find value in the brand ambassador. And to build that personal brand, as well as you developing a brand for a brand ambassador, like, this role is important. And this is what I can do for you, I think is also crucial. And not being a dick is pretty much my #1 motto. People ask me all the time, like, what is it? I was like, don't be a dick. At the end of the day, be reliable, show the fuck up, and don't be a dick. If you can do those 3 things, you're halfway to your goal. Now they're like, well, that should just be a baseline. I'm like, yeah, but you would be amazed how many people can't do that.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there have been hiccups, and there have been times where I wish I could have said or done things a little bit differently.
Of course, we all did.
But much like they say in jiu-jitsu, if you don't win, it's not a loss, it's a learning experience. So there's that.
You never got fired, so there you go. So they were willing to forgive you, mostly because I was very close a few times myself. And Jesse, I know this is a big thing for you. But you come a different fight. Like, and it's something I believe in. It's like, how do you build your brand? Let me just go into, what was your philosophy about building your brand? Because I know you did like a presentation about this.
Yeah, and I really like Todd's approach, because it's also just kind of, half of it I would say was just kind of being how to be a decent human being, which we could all use more of that these days as well. And so, yeah, it's just, it really is, like you said, it's the face of a brand, and you want someone who really, if I look at the best brand ambassadors I know, in fact, most of the brand ambassadors I know, they're people that everyone really wants to be around for all those reasons, because they're just genuinely good people and fun and all of those things, and humble and kind. But yeah, my approach is a bit more systematic and a bit more practical. So there is an article that I wrote just recently in the last couple of months for the drinks community, the Drinks Trust, which is called In Praise of Self-Promotion, How to Get Noticed. And I outline about 14 different points. I mean, I could have gone further, but I had to cap it. So I have 14 different points that I would recommend, not just for brand ambassadors or people who want to become brand ambassadors, but just anyone who wants to kind of move up in their career and kind of, get noticed a bit more within our field.
Can you give us a few, like what you think your highlights? I'm not all 14.
Sure. I mean, it's really the same way you think of a business. It really applies to us as people, right? To brand Jesse Estes or brand Elaine, brand Todd. To me, it's very similar in that sense. So, conducting SWOTs and, identifying our strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats as individuals or as brands, looking at USPs, what is it that really sets me apart from anyone else in my field? There's usually going to be at least 1 or 2 things for every single person. If we really
that's not easy to find. It is not easy to find. It's not easy to identify yourself.
It's a very worthwhile exercise, but not easy. And then, things like just being ready, having headshots ready, because there's going to come that time where things do start picking up, where people are going to ask for a buy or they're going to ask for a headshot. Just kind of being prepared for that kind of upcoming success. And, Elaine asked me this question yesterday, and I just thought that I was at the supermarket a few days ago, and I saw a brand, I can't remember what it was, it was just some consumer good, but I knew nothing about this brand, but I had seen it enough times with that brand recognition. There was a familiarity to me already with this brand that really kind of tied into, for some reason, my mind went to politics, that, especially with smaller elections, local elections, like in the US, all this money they pay for those little things in people's front yards and advertisements on TV, it's really just to drive home that brand recognition. So to me, it's like, get your name out there, get involved with whatever it is, forums or groups on Facebook. Try to write, try to become, I guess blogs are kind of out of fashion now, but, start an Instagram page, a TikTok, whatever's the most relevant medium right now. But put your name out there, because, if that CV comes across someone's desk, they're going to say, oh, I don't know Jesse Estes, but I know that name. I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen it at Tales of the Cocktail. I've seen it at BCB, wherever. And I think that brand recognition, that name recognition goes a long way. So, if you're interested, please read the article. I think there's a lot to say about this. And I really like Todd's approach, which is more human, I'd say. Mine's a bit more practical.
Well, there's a balance of two, right? So it's like there is that human approach of when you're on the actual job and you're putting yourself out there, and then there's like the more tactical. Yours is a more tactical. You're like, man, like for me, and it was so funny when I was on with Ian Burrell. I said to him, I'm going to say something to you, and it's going to be really shocking. And I said, nobody's ever asked me to do a seminar ever or to be on a panel. And he's like, are you shitting me? I was like, never. I've never been asked to be on anyone's panel in my entire 20-year career on any trade show. I said, he goes, but you're always at trade show. I said, every trade show, I've created my own seminar, made my own panel, and put it out there in the world. I said, even Diageo never asked me to put together a seminar. Ever. I took Diageo to Tales. They'd never been there before. And I brought them in and created seminars, created the brand ambassador Thursday happy hour thing. Like, I was like, sometimes you just have to make that extra effort. Like if somebody's not asking you to do something, and a common theme on this show has been do the job you want before you get the job, so like, and I just wanted to put myself out there. I wanted people to know who I was. I wanted to speak at seminars because I had some things that I was really interested in talking about. But I was like, and I wanted to build I wanted to build a brand, because I knew I wasn't going to work at Diageo forever. And I didn't work behind a famous bar. So it's like, I need to do something so people have some way of like, who's this Elaine Duff person? Why should I listen to her? So sometimes you have to do extra work, and it takes a lot of effort. I think that's a great article. Can you send it to me later? Or
same here.
Yeah. Definitely. So I can post it. I'll post it up on the page. I think people would love to see it. Okay. So for you both, I'm looking at, so you build your personal brands. We talked about that. Some of your beliefs around this, blah, blah, blah. Todd, so we talked about yesterday about personal growth, because you've made a lot of career changes based on you were looking for that new challenge or some new roles. It's something else you wanted to learn. So talk about some of the roles you had and how you got to where you are now, and why you made that change, especially going from brand ambassador into distributor.
So working on brands and working on different brands, the goal was never to just sort of take a little bit and run. It was more, the positions happened organically and the opportunities happened organically, and that was really, really exciting. I took each job when I worked for Chartreuse. It was just sort of luck one day, because I was really focusing on the wines, and Chartreuse was just sort of this feather in the cap of an incredible portfolio like Frederick Wildman. So, once I was able to get an account list and realize that the people that were embracing this brand were people that I could only learn from, I could only learn a ton from, it was also this opportunity to say, hey, listen, you have these incredible, thoughtful, brilliant people embracing this brand. How do we spread the word even more? So that sort of led into me sort of forging my own path within the confines of what the company wanted. And then with Sidney Frank, the opportunity to work more focusing on learning cocktails and learning about, trade engagement and working within media and working under public relations was an incredible opportunity. And then, so that taught me a lot. And, Sidney Frank, as did every employer, really embraced in the education and personal growth within my career. They sent me to Bar 5 Day. They gave me a lot of opportunities to pitch ideas. And if they made sense, great. And if they didn't make sense, they told me, why do you think this works? Here's why we think it doesn't work. Run it back again, and let's see if we can find that middle ground. And that teaches you a lot as well. Yeah, that teaches you, more importantly, a sense of humility, because at the end of the day, it's never about one person. It's about the brands. And that was something that was a big part of the personal growth. And then transitioning from Sidney Frank to Diageo was wild, because I never worked for a company of that size ever. And the amount of layers of learning you get into the guts of it, and you learn things like media training and compliance. And when you're working for an agency, there are these, protocols with working with the client, and that teaches you not only how to find your path and stay in that path for all the right reasons, but also how to sort of navigate what can help everyone on the team. And that was really cool, especially working with the masters of whiskey and the reserve portfolio, which are some of the best brand ambassadors, some of the most educated brand ambassadors. I mean, you sit down and have a conversation with someone like Doug Craigle or Ewan Morgan or any of them, and the men and women on that team were and are still some of the brightest minds I've ever had the chance to work with. So just, you get to be a sponge, and that's really cool. And then
I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you a second. I was going to say, I was always really jealous of the whiskey people, because, Jesse, you got to realize, within our company, working for Diageo and working within the agency, the whiskey ambassadors have been around for a long time. They got to go to Scotland. They got to work in the distilleries. They got the best education ever of everybody, right? So like everybody else were like scraping by, like, here's Tanqueray. That's it. Like, just like, this is gin or this is vodka. I mean, eventually we started expanding. Like, I used to beg, borrow, and steal to go to distilleries. I was like, oh, is a press trip going? I'll use my teeny. I'll come too. Like, I want to see the distillery. Like, yeah. So I still think it's one of the best education programs for brand ambassadors on knowledge, and what they allow them to do was incredible. So you were really lucky to get into that.
Yeah, it was incredible. And then also we had an amazing, even a little local team where I got to work with people like Diana and Robert Pallone and, Rebecca Quinones, and just an amazing, incredible group. And it's just all these opportunities to contribute and learn and collaborate while having to go on your own path. And it teaches you a lot of independence within confines, and that requires a certain amount of discipline. And then I decided to get into sales on the distributor side, and that was really the one aspect that I had not done in this industry. And I think, personally, I believe everybody should work in a restaurant for at least a year of their life and work in some kind of sales job, because you really learn a lot about yourself when you're in sales.
Like what?
And, well, you get real good at learning to handle rejection. You get real good at learning to put out multiple fires all at the same time, be they inventory issues, working on pricing, trying to help a customer who, may or may not have understood that a hard cutoff time means any orders after that time can't be accommodated the next day. They don't care. They've got a restaurant to run. They've got a retailer who needs special orders. So it's you bite down on that mouthpiece and get after it. You get it done, because that's what needs to get done. And when I decided to transition from that, I got an opportunity to work for Overproof. And I wanted to develop my leadership skills and do it in service of a company that has been working to create technology platforms to help the food and beverage industry, to help out liquor brands, to help out retailers. And that's been really exciting, because even though my title says Director of Sales, I've got to be out there in the field. I'm an extension of the sales team and another member of the sales team, in addition to leadership roles. Just because I'm in a leadership role, it means you have to be able to do everyone on the sales team's job as well as they do, and then roll it on up, as well as meet the objectives and the requests of the leadership and the C-suite team that I report to. And it's been a wild ride, and I don't regret a single decision of it, except maybe some of those 6 a.m. flights after late events the night before. Those I
think we all regret those. Those would definitely take a toll. And one quick question on the leadership, learning about leadership, which is, you either learn it on the job and on the fly, or, maybe you took some leadership courses, or you had a mentor. Did anybody, help you along the way? Did you have a mentor? Was you take courses? Learning management is interesting.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. It's kind of a hybrid, all three. I looked up to the leaders that I've always had, and they always took the time to help me because, well, I ask a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions because it's important. And then I look to people like authors like Brene Brown, who talk about leadership and vulnerability, and Ryan Holiday and his work on the Stoics. And then a personal sort of mentor of mine, kind of a hero, if this age possible, is Jocko Willink, who, if you follow him on Instagram, it's just pictures of his watch, him getting up to work out at 4:30 in the morning, and his idea of leadership and extreme ownership. And those are books that I definitely recommend, because he took all of his applications from the military and helped translate them to where people who work in sales, marketing, development of any kind can take these strategies of extreme ownership, decentralized command, managing up and down the chain of command within a company of various size, and use it to help everyone achieve their goals. So I kind of just threw it all together.
I want that list. I want that list, and we'll put it up. And you said the Stoic philosophy, yeah, as well.
Yep. Ryan Holiday and the Stoics. It's brilliant.
It is brilliant. I read one every day. Philip actually recommended it to me, and you can read one every day. They're really short. If it's the same one, it's like really short passages of like different Stoic philosophies, and then translation. Jesse, it's very good.
I'll check it out. I'm going to add that to my list after this.
Yeah, Todd's going to send this over the list. I'm going to put it up there, which I think is amazing, because the leadership thing is definitely the next role for so many people. It's getting up to that chain of command, and I think I commend you, Todd. You've gone so far since I have known you. It's such a different role now, working for a startup. I just commend myself, so I work for myself. It's just me commanding me, and it's some days it's tough. It's not always easy. All right, so Jesse, I really want to, because Tequila Ocho is a family-owned brand, right? It's founded by your father, Thomas Estes. He's one of the most famous tequila people in the world. It's created by the Camarena family, which is one of the most respected tequila families in the world. And I wanted to make sure I read this correctly, because I wrote my own question, but it was a good one. I'm assuming the heritage has a little bit of pluses and minuses for you, because it must be a little bit of pressure, right, to work for something like that. So I wanted to talk about some of the cool things, because obviously working for the brand and being family-owned, you probably get to do things that other people might not be able to do if they're just a brand ambassador. So from like product development and things of that nature. I actually found one of his products the other day, and I was very excited. I don't have it here with me, but it was the new CAS program that I didn't realize Jesse created. So talk about that. Like, what are the positives? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of positives, and just, the relationship aspect with my dad of getting to work together. And of course, this is something that, I think we were both aware in the very early days that could go either way, but I think it was overwhelmingly a positive experience for both of us to get to, have the father-son relationship and also a kind of work together in a professional setting. So for me, it's been a really great experience. And, I don't think it's never been about, trying to quote unquote fill my father's proverbial shoes. It's very much, and I don't want to speak for the Camarena family, but I think that they feel this way too, that, Carlos Camarena as a fifth generation master distiller has heaps of heritage and tradition and deep roots in the tequila world. But he's also an innovator. He's a pioneer. He's a kind of visionary, for lack of a better word. within that category. And I think that he sees his next generation, so his daughter Fanny and Marie Fair and Carla, his 3 daughters, all in the family business now, very much as that kind of next wave. And I don't think, again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I don't think he would want them to do things exactly the way he did them. I think that's the beauty of this new generation coming in, that they change things. And, you know, Todd, having worked with these brands with extreme heritage like Chartreuse, you know, if Chartreuse never changed in 400+ years, I don't mean the recipe, I just mean the essence of the brand itself. You know, I think the opposite of change is death, really, at the end of the day. So, you know, that's important, that every new generation brings their own touch. So, yeah, I'm very much glad to be adding some of my own influence onto the brand. And this partnership that we started, that you mentioned, with Maison Ferrand and Alexandre Gabriel and his team, started 3 or 4 years ago, probably. And we did a barrel swap. So they sent us some different rum barrels and cognac barrels, and we sent them some very special barrels formerly containing Tequila Ocho. And we've done a range of cask finishes that came out a couple of years ago. And then just recently, what Elaine found in the Hamptons, I think it was, which is super rare. This release, we did about 300 cases of each SKU. It's called Barrel Select, and these were created by Alexandre Gabriel. They're the first blends that we've ever done with Tequila Ocho, because that's not really part of our philosophy. But again, we like experimenting, we like innovating, we like trying new things and crazy.
I'm going back there just to get the other 2, because I didn't realize it was only like 300 cases of each on the marketplace. And I like saw them, I sent them a picture, and I bought one. It was like aged in a rum barrel, and I have it. It's an añejo, and I'm like, wow. And there's one in a cognac, right? What's the other one? A cognac, rum, and
then there's a blend of different rums. I think Fiji and Panama, and different cognac barrels. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if the liquor store knew, and it was a very cool liquor store, but I don't even know if they know how special it is. So
no, probably not.
Yeah, I was like, because Tequila Ocho was in a lot of liquor. I was in a lot of liquor stores that weekend, working on a different project, and I was like, Tequila Ocho is really out here. People really love tequila out here, and then I saw those. I'm like, well, these are new. So yeah, very excited. Going back.
Oh, that's cool. And I never get tired of that, Elaine. I'll be out with, especially with non-industry friends or non-industry friends, and I'll see Ocho on the back bar, and I walk into the bar and it gets me every time. If it's a bar I've never been to before, and they're saying, come on, you know, Ocho's in thousands of bars, tens of thousands of bars around the world, but it just gets me every time. So walking into the liquor store and seeing that, it's the same experience.
Now, you must feel that pride. I know Philip feels that way when we go into a bar and somebody has, you know, his Geneva on the back bar, and he's like, wow, look at that. He's like, it never gets old whenever you see that. So yeah, that must be really magical. And also having an expression that you've made yourself, inspired to be made is kind of really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really exhilarating, unique experience for me, that, you know, to take that from a purely like conceptual or pre-conceptual state to being, like you sending me that photo, to being in the shelves of the store that you happen to be in. It's just kind of surreal. It's a great experience.
No, that is so cool. Todd, we did, and this is a completely different subject, but I did think it was really interesting because we started talking yesterday, and we were talking about, you know, different things about being a brand ambassador. And the one thing that every brand ambassador will complain about is reporting and expenses, right? So that's like probably the most mundane part of your job, right? That's extremely important, but still the most painful, right? So people have shared best practices about taking, you know, pictures of your receipts and using your tool and marketing things. But we were talking about expense management and the fact that there's also a, you know, in this new generation, excuse me, health and wellness. And sometimes having a credit card that's not your own can lead to a little bit of debauchery and maybe making poor decisions. That also is probably bad for other people. So Todd, you talked about this, right? Like just about making more conscious decisions of like how you're using your expenses, your credit card. Give me an example.
Absolutely. You know, and to the generation of brand ambassadors out there now that never had to like cut and tape and paste receipts, for me to do a collab, you know what? The way I look at it is this: if the worst part of my job is having to do a small collage because I got to spend someone else's money, then I have no business ever complaining about anything ever in any aspect. In fact,
miss mine so much.
I mean, it's a funny thing. Yeah, expense reporting, complaining about spending someone else's money is like, I don't know.
Very spoiled.
It's sort of like, you're pretty spoiled. And yeah, I have friends who would describe that another way, but I don't know if there's family-oriented content on this, so I'm not going to use the expletives that friends have used with me about it. Anyway, I digress. No, it's very interesting that the most they tell you is, here's your card, spend the money like it's your own, and oh yeah, good luck. And I think there should be a certain amount of responsibility about that. And I should be like, listen, is it a viable time to buy a round of drinks at 2 a.m. for an entire bar because you're celebrating something? Or looking on it in retrospect, maybe it wasn't. Maybe I didn't need that. Maybe they didn't need that. Maybe I hadn't read the room when I bought those rounds of shots or beers or drinks or whatever. And maybe it was a better time to use that earlier in the evening. Sure, maybe there was less of the grandstanding and sort of the smoke show that comes along with being able to stand on the bar top at Aaron Rose and buy everyone a round of shots in there at 2 a.m. when probably there was a handful of people who didn't need that, who didn't want that, but got caught up in the tsunami, as it were, of this hype and this frenetic energy. And maybe it's like, maybe you could have used that money a little bit differently, because getting the text the next day, and I'm sure it's happened to all of us, of saying, oh, that last one really put me over the edge. Like, you never want to hear that, because that's sort of it's the counter to what we're trying to do with the brand. And in that situation, it becomes more about the ego of the brand ambassador versus the actual what's best for the brand itself. And it took me a little while to learn that, because as much fun it is to have a good time, and you know, you're given sort of this unbelievable literal wealth that you get to walk around with in your wallet and take pictures of your receipt and put it in a recap. There's definitely a lesson in there, and that lesson is just take that minute to pause and think about, really try to have a plan how you're going to use your company's money, because when brand ambassadors come back, and they come back into the field and they're active again, and you know, we're sort of through this pandemic, everybody's going to be watching their bottom line a lot more than they were in the past, and really in the heyday of things, in that sort of 2000, you know, pretty much up until 2020 was sort of the high time for brand ambassadors. You know, you were just riding this incredible wave that you got to do this for a living. And if I were leading a team of brand ambassadors, that's what I would tell them. I would say, listen, if you don't think someone's going to be watching your every move, then they will. They are. And they will be watching every dollar, because all the reporting is done through your phone now. So technology, while it can be your ally for convenience sake, you bet your ass that it could also cause someone to have a lot to explain. Yeah. So start building that discipline now. And it'll prevent you from maybe making the choices that some of us older folks made in the past.
and got away with, but we wouldn't get away with it now.
Got away with it enough.
Enough. Yeah, I think those are wise words. Anything, Jesse? You have any thoughts about that? I mean, I don't know how your company works. You kind of work for your
Yeah, my experience was very different. You know, we shared hotel rooms and things like that, and flew EasyJet until fairly recently. And then, you know, I have, to me, the very big blessing that, you know, more recent travel, I was able to get hotels with gyms and things, which we spoke about, the importance of kind of keeping up that side of personal wellness. But yeah, we've always been, I mean, we built Ocho with no funding essentially. So we were always on a tight budget and very aware of that. But I think, you know, the reporting is really important because it does just bring a little bit more awareness, like Todd was saying. It just, otherwise it's too easy. It's almost like monopoly money. You know, if you just forget that this is real money, and that, you know, if you have to do it whatever monthly, or you have to really look at what you've spent. Hopefully, you know, certainly for me it does, and hopefully for others, it just makes it a bit more real. And actually, yeah, you look at that and say, oh, did I need, you know, to spend that one line or those 10 lines in this spreadsheet? You know, I'm not sure. So I think it's a positive thing to have to report it. And I agree with you guys both completely that post-COVID, this is going to look very different for most organizations, I think.
Yeah, no, accountability is a big thing. You got to give it. And especially for those who are, you know, might be younger and don't have their own brand, where it's their own money you're spending out there in the world, and you're spending somebody else. It's like being accountable for where you're spending, what you're doing with it, and somebody kind of checking in. I remember when I was managing brand ambassadors before I actually became one, I remember, like, you know, calling me, I'd look through their receipts and they'd be like, I'd call them out on shit. I'm like, yeah, why are there like 16 other brands on here and like one of yours, and you bought an entire round? And I get that happens once in a while, and I was like, it's fine, but it should not be the norm. You know, just calling people, I'm like, you need to be more, and I think as a manager, you do need to let your brand ambassadors know you are looking sometimes. So, because if nobody's paying attention, then of course people suddenly, they're like, nobody seems to give a shit, so why should I? I do think you have to let them know that you do care, and that somebody is paying attention, and, you know, coming up with a plan, like what's acceptable and what's not. Like, I get it. Sometimes you're going to be sitting in a bar, they don't carry your brand, you're just trying to build a relationship. You're going to have to buy something. That's totally fine. But if you don't give them guidelines, I've had brand ambassadors sweating to me, like, I didn't know what to do. I was sitting at the bar and I bought a thing and they didn't have our brand. And I'm like, it's okay. You can totally do that. Like, yeah. I get it. You can buy a drink. And I was like, I always recommend buy the competitors so you can see how they're serving it and what they think about it. I was like, do your research while you're there. And that's okay. But if you don't provide some of those guidelines of what's acceptable and what's not, then how do they know? And then they're sweating, like, every time they hand something, like, is that right? Is it not right? And I don't think that's fair to an employee either. It's like, you really have to make sure that they understand what the rules are. And, like,
absolutely.
If they do fuck up, like, how do I handle it? Like, do I try to bury it, or do I have an honest conversation? Like, I fucked up last night. A couple of too many drinks, and I bought a round of something that had nothing to do with me. Do you want me to pay for it myself, or like, how do we work it out? You know, and
yeah,
good manager, yeah, we'll probably be like, all right, like, I understand, you know, we'll figure it out.
And also, yeah, absolutely, couldn't agree more with that. You know, it's setting boundaries for yourself, taking that ownership, and yeah, you know, putting the pressure on yourself to do right by the company that you work for. Otherwise, there is no accountability. So it comes down to holding yourself accountable first. Yeah.
And especially when you're working for yourself, you have to make sure you're accountable. You do start to treat money a lot differently when it's definitely your own. So I wanted to kind of, I know we're kind of getting onto the hour, but I wanted to talk about, you know, there are definitely some things that are sometimes very difficult about being a brand ambassador, whether it's work-life balance, or, you know, it's the drinking, or, you know, things of that nature. And Jess, you mentioned, you know, sometimes it was about the 24-hour day. So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's, you know, especially working in I think almost every time zone except for like the oceans. You know, it's easy, you know, if I don't turn off my phone, which I was not so good at in the past. You know, it can easily be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now when I'm done for the day, I just switch my phone off, because there's nothing that's, you know, that's any kind of emergency that I need my phone on for. Yeah, that just really helps create a kind of division between work and not work. And yeah, I'm sure that's something that most people in these types of positions, Todd included, would have wrestled with at some point.
Yeah, I mean, Todd, do you have like a ritual or anything like your end of day or beginning of your day? Like, how do you maintain?
I get up. It's I get up at Monday through Friday. I get up at 4 a.m. every day and work out.
Wow.
And go to jiu-jitsu at 6:30 in the morning. That way, when my teammates are done trying to strangle me and fold me up into various uncomfortable positions, everything else feels relatively easier. And I don't drink during the week at all. I don't go out during the week anymore. And even there were times where I would try different sort of supplementation or fasting protocols when I was working, or different nutrition plans when I was on the road a lot. And I also limited red eyes. I figured if it cost the company $30 more for me to book a flight at a more reasonable hour for health and wellness, well, then I just maybe don't take 6 bartenders to lunch that day to offset the costs. And from there, they're going to find that their employees are going to be a lot more productive when they're not taking a red eye that takes 2 days to recover. I mean, Jesse, you're global, as well as anyone. In Elaine, you've probably still got miles from all of your travels.
Oh yeah. No, I was gonna say I always admired, actually, when I worked for Anheuser-Busch, they had a policy of to always, if it was anything over 6 hours, you definitely got to fly first class so you could get a good night's sleep. They would not. They were very stringent. Like the amount of money we could spend on a hotel, how much money we got for a day for food. Like, I was not used to that. Going from Diageo, where like I could like sit at Daniel Boulud and have like a nice dinner for the night. I went to that, like I had a budget for $70 for the entire day, no matter where I was. Sometimes 50 if I was in Mexico, 90 if I was in London. I was like, seriously, like, how am I supposed to eat on this? Like, but they definitely had a policy of making sure they wanted you to be well rested. So they really preferred you didn't take red eyes. They wanted you on day flights. They wanted you to sleep. So they would make sure, like, I used to have to go to Brazil a lot, Brazil and Argentina. And, that's a long flight. So we always took business class, or Asia. We used to go to Singapore a lot. And like, you flew comfortably so you could sleep. And I appreciated that, because when I arrived, I wasn't jet lagged, because I had a, decent night's sleep. You're always a little jet lagged. And to your point, I don't get up at 4, Todd, but I do get up every day, even on weekends, actually, because I just find it easier, somewhere between 6 and 6:30. And I get up at 6:30, I meditate, and I write my gratitude list for the day. It just helps, it sets my mind. And at the end of the day, depending what day, but most days, I used to end it during COVID, really when the pandemic was heights, it was martinis at 6 with Philip. I've gotten healthier and a little bit healthier. And now I go to the gym because gyms are open again. So I go to my Pilates reformer class at like 5:30, 6:30. So that's how I end my day. I don't like working out in the morning. I used to, and now that's like my prime working hours, between like 6:30 and like 11 is like, I shut myself off in the room and I get so much done. But I do think having those rituals do keep you, on a routine, and also allows you to be more productive. Jesse, do you have any routine that you have, or?
Yeah, same as you guys. Exercise to me is key, and I'm not a morning person, so I'm the opposite of Todd. And I think to me, it's like at the end of a long day, it's like my reward. So I get to go to the gym, or whatever the constraints are, get out and skip rope, or go for a run, or whatever it is. So that's like my reward for a good long day of work.
Yeah, nice. No, I think it's really good. I mean, I'm still Todd. I'm not like I'm one of those where I go to the gym, I come home, I still have a martini. But it's like my reward to myself for going to the gym. It's like, if I go to the gym, I can have a martini. There you go. But that's just me. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. But any last minute advice for anybody who wants to become a brand ambassador or maybe is one now that you're like, hey, learn from me. Like, if you had any words of advice that you'd like to end with, I'll start with you, Jesse.
Oh, sure. Well, besides reading my article, obviously, right?
Obviously, yes.
But no, I just, I'm kind of, for some reason, it's just stuck in my head of this thing of just putting yourself out there. Of course, like you guys said, showing up and just being a decent person, which is, I think, applies for any job, really, I think. But just putting yourself out there and getting involved. And knowledge is, I guess we didn't really talk so much about knowledge, but just there's so many resources out there that are free now, and there's scholarships to the WSET and things like that. So knowledge is huge. And I think if you have that knowledge and you're really kind of shouting about yourself, putting your name out there, then people will notice. And, then that's when, not only do you get more of that name recognition when you do apply for a job, but people may even say, I love what this person is doing, and just kind of approach them to directly to hire them. So I think, knowledge and putting one's name out there is the kind of two main things I would put forth.
No, I would definitely, and actually I will take a step back since it's my show. I can stay on as long as I like, but you guys probably have things to do. But I was going to say, to the knowledge point, because Todd, you talked about this yesterday, and I think it is important for a minute to talk about, we talked about, Todd, the fact that like you can work on anything if you understand how just like spirits are made. And Jesse, to your point, where like there's so much stuff out there, and just taking courses of understanding how distillation works and fermentation work. And Todd, you said it really did help you even jump into wine, right?
Yeah.
Because you understood the process. And I will say, for anybody like the WSET for me was definitely, I had taken Bar 5, which how I started off my career, and I knew nothing. And Todd, and you and I talked about the fact that we were in like with legends in our class, like people, like,
killers,
like things like that. And I had people next to me like Jim Meehan. I was like, all right. He's like smelling things like blind. And he's like, so this is Bacardi. This is this brand. And I'm like, I don't even know what fucking spirit that is, but okay. Like, it's so new. And I think once you do have those fundamentals, and now that I've taken the WSET level 3, it definitely opened I now, after 20 years, really understand distillation at a very geeky level, and fermentation and aging and all that stuff. And I highly recommend it. It does allow you to talk about anything, because once you understand those, then it's like everything just has its nuances. Every spirit has those nuances, and it makes you a better brand ambassador. Would you agree?
Absolutely agree 100%. I think, to sort of tie that into what you asked Jesse about advice for future brand ambassadors, I mean, the core tenets really are study your category, study your brands, be prepared for everything from a 45-minute presentation to a 30-minute elevator pitch to, hey, I've got 5 minutes next to a stranger at the airport. I'm ordering my brand. The conversation strikes. How do you navigate all those different spaces? The biggest thing is you're part of a team. There are a lot of great brand ambassadors out there, but there are also a lot of very hungry people who want to work hard in our industry, and we're only as good as our last bit of work.
Yep.
And we're only as good as our value to the team, to the program, to what we're doing. So, be sure to remember that while we need to be on that stage and under the lights or behind the bar and you're talking to people, you're really nothing without the team around you. Otherwise, you're just somebody talking for a living. And I think that sort of deferral of the ego is really important, because you're the face of a brand, and you're the face of a brand that's been around a lot longer than the three of us combined, let's say. And there are a lot of people who help make that happen. So just get excited. Get excited about all of it. Get excited about the basic questions from new bartenders who could become future loyalists. Take the time to, you know, get to know everyone. There's so much that's great about the brand job that can lead you into so many other careers. Just go with it and have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think networking is really key, and getting to know people. And, you know, I think one of the things is like getting to know people, because sometimes you're in an event and there's so many great people in the room, right? But really spend time with the people that you're with. Like if you're having that conversation, just stay in that you'll see those other people again. It's fine. Yep. You don't have to get to know. It's something I learned later on in life. It's like, yeah, like there might be somebody across the room that you've been dying to see, but if you're in that conversation with somebody and you're having, because we never know if we'll ever see that person again. Life is short and weird. And so it's like really appreciate those people and build those relationships and stay in touch with them. And that's what social media is really great for. And, you know, get to know them on a personal level. It's amazing the stories you start to find out. It's one of the reasons why I do this, is because I get to know people a lot better on a much more intimate level. And yeah, and I always like to I'll end it with, just don't be a dick. Be a good person. Keep building your personal brand to wrap it up. Keep educating yourself. You know, there's always something new to learn. And guys, this has been really great. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. This will stay live. So if you want to share it anywhere, you can. I'll put a clip of like some of our highlights onto LinkedIn, because Todd, I know you're on there. So I saw you today post on that. And that's it. So guys, I really appreciate this. This was really awesome. I learned a lot from the both of you. So thank you.
Thanks for having us, Blaine, and great to virtually meet you, Todd.
Yeah, likewise, Jesse. It's a pleasure to meet you. Big fan of what you and your family have done for years. So thank you. And Elaine, great to catch up with you again over the past couple of days. Thank you for this opportunity. It's awesome.
No, thanks, guys. I look forward to seeing you both in person sometime soon.
Soon. Miami's open. Come through.
Thanks, Diana, for tuning in.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. There you go.